First National Bank, Standard Bank. You get a Nedbank, Netherlands Bank, Netherlands Bank, Dutch Bank that you have there. And then later on, other banks would come. I'm mentioning these banks because today when you look at the requirements of banking, those banks didn't need to meet those requirements when they were established, when we were still a British colony, of which we still maybe are today, and that's why there are onerous requirements to set up a bank or get a banking license today. The Afrikaners, being treated like second-class citizens in South Africa, decided to come together. They formed a secret society, the Broederbond. From the Broederbond, they then infiltrated government with the National Party. And one of the key things they did is that they set up their own bank, Volkskas, which is Afrikaans. Later on, Volkskas would merge with 4 other banks. To be Volkskas, to be Allied Bank, to be United Bank, to be Trust Bank. These 4 banks would be known as the Amalgamated Banks of South Africa. If you take that acronym, it comes up with ABSA. Amalgamated Banks of South Africa, ABSA. The biggest retail bank in South Africa today. From ABSA, we got other banks, of course. When you look up the requirements for a retail bank in South Africa, one of the key requirements is that you need to have 250 million rand in cash. That is unencumbered. It is not in assets. It is not linked to investments. It does not serve as collateral somewhere. 250 million rand cash. Standard Bank, First National, Nedbank, the big banks never needed these requirements. The 250 million, which already excludes 99.99999% of all South Africans in ever even thinking of launching a retail bank, is apparently one of the easier requirements. There are regulatory requirements that will ensure that sometimes even if you get a banking license, keeping it becomes incredibly difficult. You have to abide by the FCSA, which used to be the Financial Services Board, which manages financial transactions and services. You need to register with the NCR, the National Credit Regulator, to ensure that if you're giving out credit, you fall under that ambit. And you're not involved in reckless lending like African Bank had been in before. You have to register with the Prudential Authority, the PA, to make sure that they're constantly monitoring your compliance, not just for banks, but for insurance companies and other financial services providers. They make sure that you have a certain board that ticks a certain criteria with people with certain qualifications, and they ensure that they almost give a thumbs up and a rubber stamp to the people that are meant to sit there. This is on top of the fact that you need to raise your own funding for infrastructure, buildings, branches, ATMs, paying staff, and. That is not money you're going to get from the government, and it's money you're not going to get from some of the funding agencies here. If you, for some reason, manage to jump through all these hoops, you then have to abide by the Banks Act or the Banking Act, which is set and monitored by the South African Reserve Bank, which is privately owned, which takes its directive from the Central Bank of London, the Bank of England.